Okay, after our retreat mid-year meeting that we had last Wednesday, I failed to give you some supplementary information regarding our capital items that had more detail in what we were recommending here as the staff to the city council. So I apologize. This has been requested a few times, and every time, for whatever reason, I forget to add the supplemental information. So we give you a summary, we give you one line, but that, and you know, we ask if you have questions on any of the items, but it's fair to you guys that we get these things to you in advance so that if you do have questions, there could be certain things that we could get worked out, you know, before we get into our meeting. So we sent the supplemental information out to you yesterday. I did download it into the Dropbox just now, which has the detail on these items. And then also the page, which I've given a hard copy to you, that has the supplemental summary for our fiscal year 21 budget that we reviewed last Wednesday. Now, we did change a few things based on our discussion last Wednesday. Just made a couple minor changes on some of the things that were funded that needed to be funded that were unfunded as far as that was concerned. So I'll review these again and then open it up for any questions that you may have now that you have the supplemental information. I'm assuming we didn't necessarily want to go item by item. So if there were things that you had questions about, whether it was on the funded or unfunded side, we're prepared to answer those questions. And we're okay. If there's something the council wants to switch, I mean, we're fine with that. This is, you know, our recommendation as staff, but that, I mean, you guys are the ones that decide how the funds are allocated, and we're not going to be offended or anything like that. We just, you know, we want to make sure that we're getting you where you need to go on the things where you would like to see the money go to. So, did you have questions?
I do.
Okay.
So maybe you give us some insight how the list comes to be. I mean,
Okay.
do you sit down as directors
Uh-huh.
and pull out your swords and say, this is who gets what?
Yeah,
And I'm just
fortunately,
curious.
we don't do that.
Okay.
But no, and quite honestly, this is the best department head staff I've had in my 3 cities in regards to a budget process and trying to figure out what needs to be funded and what's fair so that each department is represented in regards to some of the capital funds. So our typical process is department heads will submit what's called a supplemental to Denise, which will be their request. Whether it's operational would be in our regular budget, that would be ongoing funds. It would be something which would require us to have funded year after year in our annual budget. So for instance, if a department wants an additional employee, that would be an operational discussion. The capital items are just one-time money, things that we would spend one time. We would have the item. It's usually a project, it's a facility, it's something, it's a piece of equipment, it's something that's a one-time expense. So Denise receives all the supplementals, she puts it into a spreadsheet. At that point, Denise and I review them. There are certain items that Denise and I will take out. For instance, if it's less than $5,000, generally we'll sit down with the department heads and try to figure out a way to fund that in their operational budget. Or if there is a little bit of additional money left over in the capital that we can take $2,000 out of, we'll just handle those. If there are things that are really large ticket items that have a long-term plan, for instance, like buying a fire truck or leasing a fire truck, then we'll sit down with the department head and we'll talk about the long-term plan and the way to fund that. So there are a few examples where Denise and I, as we work through it, that there's some items that we will pull off that. But for the most part, most items stay, and then we sit down with the department heads and we have them prioritize their request. We have them clarify their request. So we have a discussion as to, you know, what this means. Because sometimes, for instance, we'll be talking about the swim pool, and the swim pool has their own budget, and they have a fund balance. So sometimes we can fund things like new diving boards. We can take it out of their reserve account as opposed to having to use some of the general fund capital money. So we work through some of those, and so if there's ways to get those items funded, through other means, then those will fall off the list. And then what we have left is what we present to you. So, in essence, we talk through the department heads, and then Denise and I put the list together, and then we present it to you. We have the funded and the unfunded, with the understanding that, again, the council decides how the money's going to go. But that's our process to get to where we are today.
So is there never an opportunity for the directors to talk with each other to see what each other's needs are? Because that might affect what they put on the list or what someone else is needing. So, because I thought that used to be the process where you guys would kind of talk about it as a group and then kind of decide who made it on the list.
Yeah, sometimes it just probably depends on what the items are, but in the past couple of years, we've had enough money to get really the high priority items for the department heads. So we haven't necessarily had to sit down and say, okay, you can get this year and you don't get that this year. So there have been times when we've had that discussion and other times when we haven't. It just kind of depends on our budget situation, so.
So Scott, are we
Yeah.
gonna go through the operational supplements and before the?
Now, let's do the
help me
capital
understand where
first.
how we're gonna go with
We'll do the capital first.
Okay,
So the capital is what we talked about last Wednesday, and as you look through these items, they'll look familiar to you. One of the changes we made was in regards to the clock tower. So the clock tower that's on the corner of Center Street and PG Boulevard hasn't been functional for a while. We got a cost estimate to fix that with some, the cost to fix it with a few other things that we would need to do was roughly $15,000. What the council said last week was, hey, let's maybe do away with the clock, which would save us maintenance and expense, which is going to be wonderful, and maybe put some panels, some signs up there that are representative of Pleasant Grove. So whether it's, the mascot from the high school, whether it's our logo, whether there's something that represents Strawberry Days, that was the direction we received.
how much did we save by doing that?
We estimate about 10 grand. So we don't know exactly yet because we haven't talked to the sign people to say exactly how much these signs are going to cost in order to do that. But there'll be some expense to go take the clock down, and whether that can be done with employees and things. Because this was something that was decided a week ago, so we don't necessarily, we just have a cost estimate in here.
I'm a little concerned that it's gotta look right. It's gotta look, I don't wanna just throw up a mascot or, you know what I mean? It's
You
gotta
can go
be-
look at like American Fork, they have a similar one that they've put up icons around it. It looks
Okay.
okay. And I can't remember what it's called now, but yeah. Go look.
But if that's the case, before anything goes up, we'll show you some proofs of what these look like.
Okay,
And, colors and those types of things. We don't want to put something up that you guys are going to look at and say, that doesn't work.
yeah.
Um, So we want to make sure that, council's on board. But right now, we're just, in essence, approving the concept of what we're trying to do. And then we'll further that as we get a little bit into the nuts and bolts is exactly how we're going to do that. So that was one of the items that by changing that freed up a few more dollars, which we were going to fund our space needs analysis for Public Works, cemetery and parks. So we have money set aside from the capital funds out of water, sewer, storm drain, or not out of the capital, well, out of their operational funds, to help pay for this space needs analysis. But there is some general fund buy-in on this, so we can't do it all out of the enterprise funds. The streets are going to be a part of that. That's a general fund expense. So we will need about $10,000 of general fund money. So we put that from the unfunded to the funded, which we should have done in the first place. That was my oversight as we were looking over this list, because that is something we want to get done here sooner rather than later so we can start the process of actually building a facility out there. So the Christmas lights, that hasn't changed. The sidewalk and ADA management, the new ambulance.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
So the Christmas lights,
Uh-huh.
have we figured that out? Chief?
You mean the ones that we currently have on this building?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're not just on at random anymore.
They're not? I mean, because, I mean, sometimes I'll drive by and one building will be red, and the other building will be off, and then they won't be on for a while, and then one of them will be flashing, and both of them will be flashing. I just didn't know if there was a,
I think we got most of that fixed.
If-
I don't know if that's happened lately.
that was like last week.
Oh, was it?
And maybe it's on purpose, and that's fine, if it's on purpose. I just didn't know if it's,
Actually, there was a, is it Jellyfish?
Yeah.
Okay, there was a Jellyfish guy here.
Yeah, they were working on it
So I
last week.
wonder if it was, he was testing them, or was this just,
I don't know. It was some evening, one evening. I didn't,
Our last meeting, we walked out.
Yeah, we haven't programmed anything either, so.
so we know how to program them, and there's no training that we need to do, and we know who
It took us
does
a
it.
little
and-
bit to get all that figured out, but I think we got it. It sounds like maybe not, if they were on the other day and we didn't put them
I don't
on.
know.
Or no.
It was like last week. I think it was last week, and it was this building that was on, and it was red, and the fire station was off. And like I said, maybe it was on purpose.
Yeah.
But I just kind of took a mental note and thought, I wonder if that's, I
Well, we'll
wonder if we
follow
figured
up on
that out.
that. I mean, we have a list of certain things that we're gonna, like Strawberry Days, we plan on having them on. 4th of July, we had them on. I mean, there's certain things, holidays that we wanted to use the lights, and then, of course, during Christmas, we'll have them on the whole
Right.
time. But random Tuesdays, when
Yeah, in
we have
red.
certain lights on, we're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
We're trying to
So,
get
I
on
mean,
top
while
of it.
if we're talking Christmas lights, we need to make sure that the
Well, like I
whole-
said, they were
the-
here working on them
Okay.
last week, so,
Okay.
I mean, there's still warranty on those things, and, you know, those will get fixed, but what this funding for is for City Hall and the library to be outfitted with Jellyfish lights, because in the long run, this is gonna be great for our employees, they don't necessarily have to hang them, and really, the safety is probably the thing we like the most, is, I mean, having our people climbing up on roofs and stuff is always not ideal, so to have them up there permanently is going to be wonderful. And this was something we talked about last year. I mean, this was a carryover from last year when we only
Right.
had enough money to fund these two buildings, and the council requested that it become a priority for our next year's worth of funding, so that's on there. So we have the sidewalk and ADA management items that Public Works will be doing. I don't know if you want further explanation outside of what you
Scott,
have there.
On
Yeah.
the very last line, it says 40,000, so by doing this, then it kicks into the next phase, the 40,000? Am I reading that right? This is then additional amount of 40,000 would be needed to also complete. I mean, is that just a
Yeah,
side note?
this
or-
study would help the city properly maintain sidewalks and ADA ramps throughout the city. This portion would only cover the ADA ramp evaluation. Additional amount of 40,000 would be needed to complete the sidewalk. So we've done a study that says this is fully what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have enough money to do all that. So we're setting aside this amount of money to get started on it.
So we've already done the study or we haven't?
We have, I believe, Marty?
So, no, we've got a consultant, the same one that did our street evaluation. They have a process where they can go in and evaluate ADA ramps and sidewalks. What this portion would be is just the ADA ramp evaluation. If we wanted to do all the sidewalks throughout Pleasant Grove, their estimate was about $40,000.
Oh, so this is for the evaluation. I guess I misunderstood.
The actual report and evaluation of our current ADA status and where deficiencies are and what things we might need to do.
That's what I'm saying, is the 40, okay.
So we're not moving forward with the 40 right now, it's just the
No, just the
17.5?
17, yeah. I mean, this is
And-
something, I mean, all cities are required to have a certain level of compliance. Almost all cities are not fully compliant. We're just doing bite-sized pieces as we go to get ourselves
Is
in
this something
compliance.
we could do in-house or not?
No,
Okay.
no, this is pretty technical in nature. Well,
Yeah, just the amount of time to go out and
Yeah.
evaluate every one of them would be very difficult, but we are required to have an ADA transition plan, and this would help us get the groundwork for the ADA transition plan and how we're getting up to speed on all of our ADA ramps throughout the city.
next up is big ticket item, which is oh, go ahead. Do you have another question?
what's the total amount of money that we have right now? 675?
675 is what we're recommending, yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, 650 was more our number there. I mean, again, this kind of depends on how our budget's going to shake out in the future. We feel comfortable with 675, which of course doesn't get us, there's another $700,000 worth of stuff that's unfunded at this point. And these are things that come January, if our budget's coming in how we hope, then this could free up some more capital money for us to come back and have a different discussion. This is where we feel comfort today as far as how much money we'd like to allocate.
Sorry, really quick.
Yeah.
Kyler, is it up and going or not yet? Oh, is it? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So on the ADA, it's 17.5 to do the study, and then we'll need an additional 40, right?
Yeah, the 17.5 is for the ADA portion of it, the 40 is for the sidewalk portion of it.
And so
And that
where
creates the-
where are we accounting for the 40?
We're not, we're just doing the ADA portion right now.
Guess I could put the 40 on the unfunded. Is that
Yeah.
what
I don't know, probably, we ought to put it somewhere, I guess, you know? Because ultimately, we're gonna have to spend that.
Ultimately, yes. I mean, that would be
Right.
part of the budget request for next year. Or if it's something we wanted to do in January. I mean, we'll have Denise move it to the unfunded, that 40 grand, and then it will be on our minds when we bring this back to you in
Right.
January.
And is the 40,000 a cost estimate, or is it?
No, that's a quote from our consultant that did that.
Okay.
So what it gives you is an overall look of every street. So they'll go through and they identify every trip hazard, everything that's out of code with regards to your sidewalks, and then the ADA ramps. So they can do them just the ADA ramps, so go to every one of those, or they can do the entire city with sidewalks as well. And then we can come up with more of an idea of what needs we have. I know we get tons of complaints on those, so it's just a way to start to get a handle on what the scope of our needs are for sidewalks, so.
So how did they, this may be a dumb question, but how did they get the 40,000 bid if they haven't done the study?
We know how many linear feet of sidewalk we have, and we gave that GIS work to them, and they did their estimate based on what we showed them that we have available to survey. They have 3D cameras that are mounted on little golf carts that they drive down these streets, and the 3D cameras identify the discrepancies. And so in short, that's what they're giving us, is based on a per linear foot of sidewalk evaluation.
So why do we need to do the study?
Well, the study's to show where,
It's gotta go through and identify all the trip hazards and all
Oh,
the issues.
okay.
yeah, it tells us where we need to
Okay.
do work.
That's what they do.
Okay, okay, all right.
So, yeah, then the big part is on the back end, sorry, we have to fund now replacing sidewalk.
Right.
Putting in ADA ramps,
Okay.
those types of things. This just tells us what we need to do, how much we have out there. Ambulance at 250,000 is the biggest ticket item as far as this request. Now, we're still working with the county on potentially qualifying this for COVID. If we do qualify it for COVID, potentially that could free up money, free up this 250 for other general fund capital. I say that with a little bit of hesitation because we could spend this and use COVID money for the ambulance, and then if in the audit they didn't feel like it meets muster, then we would be responsible to come out of pocket for that. So first of all, we're working with the county to get it qualified in our minds. Now, the county doesn't have the final say. The auditors from the federal government will have the final say. And we might not see them for a couple years. And so this is we're just proceeding with caution in a way. But I don't know. I'd really like to get this done with COVID money. I think we have a good justification to use the COVID money for it. So that's what we're proceeding. But if we do, to say all of a sudden we have 250 available today, we might want to hold on to that just for a little bit to make sure we clear audits before we turn around and spend that money. But that's right now, general fund capital. That's one of our high priorities we feel is to get our fleet is aging with our ambulance and we need a new one. We have the library marquee, which is something that initially we funded at about $20,000, and then the scope of that changed. Initially, it was going to be a pretty simple sign on a post, and we've now changed it to a monument sign, and so there's going to be a little bit more cost that goes into that. And this is a placeholder, this is a cost estimate. And now we'll need to sit down and figure out what we want, and then we'll need to bid this. And so we won't exactly know what our price is for a little while. We feel $60,000 should be enough. In fact, we feel that number's a little high, so that we can get the sign. And if it's a little high, then we have money we can put towards another project. But and that's something that, I mean, Sherry and I will be working on, and we want to get this thing going pretty quick. We already have some feedback from you all on how big and how high and the things that we did. Gosh, when was that? Like February?
Yeah, I was like earlier, because I thought we kind of gave like the final design. Is there more that needs to be done with the design?
I think, well, we have the idea of height and roughly what the design looks like, but we haven't got to the details as to exactly what the design looks like.
So what's kind of our estimate on timeline for that?
Oh, I'm hoping, I mean, if we can get somebody in the room from one of these companies here in the next 2 weeks, and really, because we have to, in essence, engineer it. And once we have it designed and engineered, then we can bid. I mean, that's going to take a month or two. With any luck, we'd have it constructed hopefully before the end of the year. But that's when we want to get done pretty quick. Now, we have to be a little bit careful. We don't want to put this down and then all of a sudden our First East project, taking out the stumps and the sidewalk, all of a sudden that's infringing on a brand-new monument sign we put in. So we'll have to determine exactly how that all fits
Roots of a
together.
very large tree.
When we get there. But this one, we want to do it in haste. I mean, this was something that we had funded, we pulled the funding and we paused it, and now we're just getting back at it. Spillman maintenance is a past obligation we've made. We obligated 3 straight years of capital money at $12,500 for a new Spillman system and on the maintenance, so that isn't a previous obligation. The WatchGuard warranty,
But we're still using Spillman, correct?
yeah, Spillman's the,
Yeah, it's just a 3-year contract.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, and just on the maintenance. So this isn't brand-new software, this is just the maintenance on the software.
That was new software, and the company,
From 3 years ago?
yeah, so we got it new, and they let us basically make payments over 3 years.
Oh, okay.
So this will be, it'll just move into the operational.
Technically, we probably should have put this into operations. We decided to fund it through capital since it was a 3-year deal. So we did 12.5 last year, we did 12.5 the year before that. This would be the last year. So at this point, it truly is a 1-year expense. And then this one will be done. We won't have that again. The WatchGuard warranty is for body cameras and equipment, extended hardware warranty and software maintenance. And then putting things on the cloud. So this is something that would enhance what we currently have. Chief Roberts, is there anything we need to add on the WatchGuard? No.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what we talked about, yeah.
Yes, and so, yeah, there was a part of a request that should have been operational that we'll work that into the budget. And then we have AEDs at the ball fields, which are going to be, which are mandated this year for our Shannon Fields and Discovery Park. Just making sure that we have those on hand in case we have an incident. So that there's $6,300 there.
That'll buy one for the recreation center upstairs, I think also.
It'll also put one upstairs in the recreation.
Yeah,
Okay,
that amount.
so 3 of them all told, right? And then we have our front desk remodel, which if you're familiar with how you enter our recreation center, as you walk in, you just have a straight path right into the gyms, locker rooms, concession area. And what we'd like to do is kind of swing that over so that as people walk in, we would in essence have a gate. So we have people that walk through that wait for our front desk staff to have their back turned or whatever, and they just come right in. So we'd like to swing that over and create now a process where they have to come, check in, and then there's a gate that will swing open and let them in. So this will help us better regulate. We talked with the county about this using COVID funds because one of the issues is under our current restrictions, when we do this, we have to track people coming in and out, and we have to make sure they get their squirt bottle, depending on what area they go to. So this will help us with that, for those people that have been trying to sneak in, this will be a remedy for that. So we feel that this 30 might be able to qualify for COVID as well. We're hoping to have answers on that in the next couple weeks. I mean, we're submitting information. We had a phone call today with the county. They want some supplemental information request, and then if they give us the thumbs up, then this is a project that we could turn around and fund something else. So we might have money that we can come back sooner rather than later for reallocation and talk about some of these unfunded items if we can qualify these for COVID.
How many people are we talking that we think are sneaking in?
You know, I don't know.
I can't put a number to it. Like,
Well-
people come for basketball games, they could easily just say, I'm watching a basketball game, and then just go upstairs and work out, and it's, I don't have a number.
If you've been into other rec centers, they have, most of them, like Provo, you walk in and there's just one point of entry, and they have a little gate. So you gotta pay your money, or you gotta swipe your pass, and then that gate swings open, you can go in.
Could we leave the desk where it is and just install a gate so they can't pass through the gate until they talk?
Part of the
to
reason we
us?
want to move the desk is so that we have eye contact with people when they come in, and so that we're having, we can say hi to them a little bit easier than if they were coming in on the side.
So when will we know about this with COVID?
Hopefully 2 weeks,
Okay.
hopefully 2 weeks. This one we want to do regardless, so, I mean, we'll start putting together, getting a contractor. There's so many items right now that we probably just need a general contractor.
And so, and have we, is this an official bid? Like we've,
This is a cost estimate. Tyler, who did you get that estimate from?
Through Red Leaf Construction.
Red Leaf Construction.
An estimate from them.
I mean, I think eye contact is nice. I'm just wondering if it's worth $30,000.
I think we will love it. I think we will love having that there. I think we'll feel a little better about the ins and outs. To put a gate across that whole thing might look a little funny, but I just,
Is there a concern that if they're looking at like a computer system and then you have it open in the back, that someone may be able to see personal information of patrons coming in, or a screen or something that someone's looking at, or financial?
I mean, we can put the screen protector things on so that people from behind can't see it.
Well, like at Provo, I think you swipe your badge, and there's one, they see that face, and then it also, there's something that faces that you see when they're swiping your card. There's
I
actually,
mean, it doesn't show personal information, does
no,
it?
it
when
just
they-
shows like
The
the face.
face
Just their
to
face,
them
right?
of who
Yeah.
the card belongs
verifies that that face matches this
Yeah.
face.
I'm saying like if
Scott.
there's an employee at the front desk like doing work and someone's behind them, there's a lot of traffic with basketball games, and they're gonna be able to see like into their desk, onto the computer, what the employee's doing. Is that a concern?
You could come up with a
Not
couple
to me.
different scenarios, right? You could put like a little small island right there, right? So they can pass on either side. Or you could put like a removable, I don't know, we could come up with some different options.
Well,
I think.
I mean, ultimately, we don't know,
Yeah,
we don't know what the price will be.
yeah. I
What,
mean,
what we're saying is, we're saying that we're willing to spend up to,
Well, the rendition they gave us was the small island that he's talking
Yeah.
about, that has some turnstile
Yeah.
type gates, so that's what the rendition this construction gave us.
and that was 30?
Yes.
No, it's one of those, I think, once we, get into design, if we have to tweak it because there's not enough money.
so I have another question, right? So the county handed over the money to us, right? But we're still accountable
Yes.
to them per se? They can come back and audit us per se? Or are we talking about the feds coming back and edit? I mean,
So the county, we're not going to be audited by the federal government. The county's going to be audited. But
By
if
the
it's one
state.
of our expenses, according to the agreement we signed, we're on the hook for it. So the county's going to turn to us and say, your expense didn't qualify, you now need to come money out of pocket.
so they're basically, they can come back and say, sorry, we don't like what you did.
Well, that's why we get pre-approval.
I know.
That's
but-
why we're sending them the stuff now to say, are you okay with this? And they give us the thumbs up, then we spend the money. And if
Sounds like
the
they should've
auditor
just
comes
kept
back and
the
says
money
that
and-
this doesn't work, we just say, hey, county, you told us that this was okay.
Yeah. It just sounds like, right, we went through all the rigmarole, the mayor's fought hard to push it over, and we're still ended up going back to him and saying, can you give us the okay?
We don't have to go back to the county.
Yeah, well, it sounds like we are.
Well, we are for protection.
Yeah,
That's how I see it.
okay.
We can spend it all we want, and then, but when the auditors come in and hit the county, and the county's like, no way should that ever have been done. I'd much rather we have It's not necessarily a mother may I, because they could tell us, we don't feel comfortable with that, and we can still spend it if we choose. I mean, it is our money.
But ultimately, we're never going to get the approval from the person that should be giving us approval, because that doesn't exist
You're
until
right.
we're audited.
You're exactly right. This is my biggest frustration about the COVID money, is we do not have a person we can go to and verify that this is a proper expense before we spend it. The Treasury Department will not do that. They're saying, here's our guidelines, you spend it within the guidelines.
And
And the
looking
guidelines-
at those guidelines,
Yeah,
does that make sense? Can we make a legal argument,
Oh,
Tina? Can we make a
absolutely.
legal argument
Absolutely.
that that's why we need it?
yeah.
Then let's spend it.
Well, and that's what we're doing,
Great.
yeah. But,
I mean, I think that's all we can do.
yeah, the reason we have the county involved is because according to the rules, the county is the one, we've signed an agreement saying that we're going to indemnify them. And so I would much prefer, and we had a great conversation.
Wait. We're gonna sign an agreement that we're gonna indemnify them after they say we can spend it?
No,
No,
no.
Yeah,
we
we
were-
already
the
signed it.
agreement's
So
already
why
been-
would we, so if we've already said that we're gonna indemnify them from us spending it, why do we need their approval to spend it?
because when the audit comes, if.
Yeah,
they-
but we've already indemnified
No, no, but
them.
okay,
Right?
here's how I see it. Here's
Okay.
how I see it. When the audit comes, if we have a piece of paper that they signed off on, then I feel that they're gonna have an obligation to help us justify the expense in the audit.
You're looking for a second signature to back us up in just in
Exactly.
case.
There's no harm in having the county,
Well, are we doing this on every item or just
no,
certain
just the
items?
big ticket items.
Okay.
Yeah, there's like masks and things like that. Those, we're not going to them for that. I mean, we're just doing that. But ambulance, restrooms, pavilions, things that are over $100,000, I'd really like to have the county be on board. And if they're not on board, and it's on us anyway, then we just have a choice. I mean, we can do that. But I feel there's an extra protection for us if the county is on board with us as we do this.
I thought all this discussion was had when the contract was signed. We're starting to have the same discussion. I mean, it seems what you're attempting to do is the appropriate thing to do to protect the city.
I'm just, I am really nervous about who eventually is going to decide what is a proper expense, particularly when some of these expenses are up to interpretation of whether it's COVID-related or not.
Exactly.
And if we're going to spend $250,000 on an ambulance, that's a huge risk for us if they come back and say, you can't do that. I'm trying to get as many people saying, that's okay, before we actually do this, and that's my intent.
That's fair. That's fair.
You know,
Okay.
and so I'm just trying to protect us. I'm just trying to protect us because we don't know exactly how the interpretation of the rules are going to be done. And the county keeps telling us, and we keep hearing, there's going to be further clarification. Well, the issue is, we're running out of time to spend the money, so we just can't sit on it forever. So we're going to be moving on things. We're going to, have our approvals, and we're going to go. And we're going to do some great things with this COVID money that are going to help protect our citizens in the short term and will benefit the city in the long term. I think that's the intent of what we're trying to do. So we have the tennis court replacement. This is just a straight-up general fund capital expenditure, and these are the two courts on the north side, which are in the worst shape and also the most used. So if we can get those two done next spring, would be fantastic. So that was the request there. We'd like to get an additional dump truck with the Volkswagen money, where we can get these things 50 cents on the dollar due to a grant. So we figure that that's a wise expense of that money. And then the last item on there is the space needs analysis for our Public Works building. So any questions on the funded, what we're recommending as funded?
I guess if there's other options for the front desk remodel, that just seems like a lot, especially we don't have numbers as to how many are, abusing coming by the front desk. I mean, I'd rather swap out the restroom remodel or the installing an upstairs restroom in the rec because there's only one and that seems more fitting for COVID than the front desk remodel.
I think we can get both funded with COVID. That's what we're attempting to do, is get both those funded with COVID. And I think we're going to get there. Based on our conversation today, we had positive vibes on the front desk remodel and on the second restroom.
From
up there.
who?
From the county.
Oh, okay.
Okay, hold on. So the front desk remodel and the second,
Yeah, so the second bathroom's on the unfunded.
12.3, or say, I don't know where it's at, 12.5,
12.5.
kind of at the
On the left,
got
it
it.
says
Okay,
recreation
the
upstairs
the
restroom.
upstairs restroom?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's an X next to it, we're attempting to get COVID money.
What
for
about,
that.
what about the restroom remodel at the library?
It's a remodel.
Yeah, so
Can we
I think
put
part of that's going
bathrooms
to qualify.
upstairs?
Part of that's going to qualify and part of it probably isn't. I mean, to get new toilets and sinks, yes, we can qualify that under COVID.
Okay.
To repaint it, probably not. So if that one ends up being 20 grand COVID and 20 grand general fund, then that is a project that we would probably get back to you fairly quick
Okay, great.
and say, let's do this. Particularly if we can qualify like the front desk remodel at $30,000 with COVID, that will free up 30,000 right there, which means we could just move right into that remodel on the restroom.
Scott?
Yeah.
Another question, well, as long as we're on the library here. The puppet theaters, because I think we were telling them they have to do filming and everything because of COVID. Would that qualify for COVID?
Sorry, say that again. They're using it specifically.
Well, because we basically said, hey, we've kind of shut down the library, right?
Yeah.
So we're asking them to now film, right? And use that because of that,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know, just a try.
Were we doing puppet stuff before?
Oh, I tried, okay, so,
Eric,
Sorry.
let's try.
you are exactly where we have been the last few weeks, and that is trying
To
Makes
make
sense.
it work.
Well,
Yeah.
and the same thing with the rekey, the library, that could actually be citywide,
Actually,
right?
that is COVID, and that is citywide.
Okay,
That probably needs an X next to it. I don't know if it had one on there.
I would think that the card system fob would be COVID.
Yes, it is.
Yes, yeah.
So the rekey of the library, which we're going to
Gosh.
do,
Oh, the little X.
there's a little X there. So we're going to
It's just so
do,
little.
we don't have a price because we're going to do City Hall and Community Development and Public Works and whatever that we don't currently have a key card system on. They're telling us if it's contactless, like you're just,
Yes.
then we're good to go. Anything that gets rid of a key or a touchpad, they said that's a qualified thing. So
Alright.
our COVID list is, I mean, we're getting up over $1 million.
Okay.
Which is great. Again, these are going to be things that are going to help with the public safety in the short term, but also I think are going to benefit us in the long term. But
All right, I just have.
yeah,
So indulge me for a minute. So I know that there is a percentage that we can keep in reserves.
yes.
Where are we at with that?
We have, generally, our number we try to keep is 2.4 million. Based on what we were planning on doing this year, we were thinking we were going to have to dip into that about $400,000. And right now, it's looking like we probably won't have to dip into any of that.
Okay.
And that's about 17%, I think was the calculation at the end of last fiscal
Yeah,
year.
so we're
And
allowed to
that's
keep.
where, and we can save 17,000,
You can go
18?
up to 25%.
Oh, 25.
Can't go below 5 in the general fund and up to 25. I
Right.
think we hit somewhere around 17 here.
Yeah, so just in general terms, if our general fund budget's 10 million, our revenues are 10 million, we're allowed to keep 25% or 2.5 million in reserves.
Okay,
And so
feel
right
good
now,
about
our
that.
general fund is roughly 13, 14 million. And so 17% of that is what we have. And that number fluctuates a little bit depending on, how we shake out each year. Now, again, last year we had $900,000 in surplus. This year, we're estimating $650,000. Generally speaking, we try to use that money for capital today. We're not putting any more money into savings, but we're doing our darndest not to use any of that.
okay.
We thought we were going to have to use it this year, but I think we're going to be able to get through without having to dip into our reserve account.
All right, so then I just have a few questions on well, first of all, I'm just going to make a couple of comments here on the funded. I am feeling very anxious about the future. I'm feeling very unsettled. I am not an alarmist, I'm not a pessimist, but I'm just feeling cautious. I love I'm wondering about the portable radios on the fire on the unfunded. I'm also interested in the paramedic training. I'm also interested in the watch guard and the car cameras. I can't think of anything more important right now than to be able to keep safe our officers and with any unrest.
Can I ask a question on that, on the
Sure.
paramedic chief? Is this, Chief Thomas, is this training for the 3 new paramedics that we brought on? Or is this
It's the
police?
cost to send 3 fire personnel to paramedic training. Funds would cover tuition, books, clinical, overtime, and shift coverage.
Is this for the new, I'll let him come up and answer. Yeah.
Dave, did you hear the question?
And my question is, what happens if we don't spend 675,000?
What do you mean if we don't?
What if we,
Only spend 500? Well, I mean, we just have to take $175,000 worth of projects and put them in the unfunded.
okay,
The 650, we feel pretty comfortable. I don't think that's overextending us as a city. I don't think that's putting us at risk. That's how I feel about it today. We are a little unknown on the future, but, and I was telling the mayor today, unless the world falls apart, then everybody's gonna be in the same boat anyway at that point. But really, I think we're gonna be okay. I'll let the chief talk about the radios and the paramedic training.
Sorry about that. I'm back there in my own little world. I can't hardly hear anything back there. So the paramedic training, I've got 3 new guys that we hired that need paramedic
they're
training.
EMTs, but they're not paramedics.
That's right. We were able to get them to an advanced level, but the fact that they're not paramedics doesn't make it, or it makes it illegal for me to have them on an ambulance by themselves. So it's legal to have 1 paramedic and 1 EMT, but you can't have 2 EMTs on our ambulances because they're paramedic level service units. So if I have some part-time guys that are just EMTs too. If I get too many of those that show up to work, I have to close down a unit because I can't run both ambulances or even 3 ambulances at that time. So I'm really anxious to get those guys. They're 3 full-time guys. I want to get them through paramedic school. My hope is also with that is to kind of via a handshake agreement, tie them up for about 3 years and tell them, look, I'll send you to paramedic school, but based on our handshake agreement, you give me 3 years. Because we've seen so many of them pack up and leave after a year or so.
I'm
And
an Air
so
Force
we're
brat.
trying to
I know
lock
what
them up
that
for a
looks-
couple of years
I know
too.
what that servitude looks like.
The other side of things are the radios that were in there. So they're not a super priority, but the radios that we have are aging, and the system itself is going to transfer from those types of radios in, I'm going to say the future. I would like to say near future, but they're kind of dragging their feet. But at some point, those radios aren't going to work on the systems that they're putting together right now. And so it's probably time for us to start at least adding a couple of radios a year. And so if I couldn't do all those radios, then we'll just figure out some way to kind of continue to add 1 or 2 radios per year.
Chief, let me ask you a question. If we have 1 ambulance and that 1 ambulance is in duty, is that the right terminology? I don't know. It's on a call. That's probably better.
Okay.
That's probably better. And we get another call in our city. What happens?
Then we depend on our neighbors.
And then is there a charge from other cities to transport our residents to the hospital?
No, there's just a loss to our city. So
They
say,
get the
$2,000 to transport a patient, we lose that revenue. And they take it and keep it.
I knew the answer. I just wanted that.
Yeah.
I wanted that on record.
record.
That we really need 2 ambulances.
So we do, and the days are coming when
I
we're going to
like-
need
I like
three.
that one.
It's just part of the growth process that we're going through and stuff.
Right.
The one thing that we've been really lucky with is that our neighbors are really good neighbors, and they're really good to us. And something interesting that happened was when we switched dispatch systems, then we essentially kind of combined all these different departments into one department and as far as dispatch is concerned. And so if my units are out and a call comes in for Pleasant Grove, then she automatically dispatches other units based on protocols we gave her. And
So looking
it
at,
makes it very seamless.
looking at July, how many times did we rely on other cities to transport our residents?
I'd have to go back and grab that. I just got that report the other day, and it's actually on my desktop. But,
We call them stacked calls.
yeah,
They do track that.
so,
And then we help them out too.
and we do. So the other day, we were over in Orem 5 or 6 times while they were working a fire incident. And so we took 5 or 6 calls over in Orem, just one after another.
But it's up to $2,500 in lost revenue for the
For
city.
transport, yeah. And we're tracking that too.
So, okay,
So
good.
we can show loss.
Thank you. Thanks, chief.
Sorry, I couldn't hear back there. I'm
That's
doing my
right.
best.
It's all right. Kyler's going to fix that for us.
Well, I don't think it's Tyler's fault. I think it has something to do with my age and being around
No, you can't blame
fire
that.
engines for a long time.
Okay, that one you can blame. So walk me through very quickly the 96-inch evidence dryer. And are we not drying evidence right now? Because it's, and I would also love to know about the car cameras.
The evidence dryer, right now we do it manually.
Hang on, let's get you on the microphone.
For the evidence dryer, right now we have to do it manually. So we take it in the evidence room and,
Like a hair dryer?
no,
can just see.
we have a spot where we have to take it back there, but I mean, it's secure because it's in the evidence room, but it's not really secure in the fact that it's not contained, if that makes sense. We take it back in the back room. So it's anything bloodborne pathogen-wise, blood, saliva, anything like that. It has to be, it can't be in plastic, it has to be in paper. Put it in the paper bags and put it in a place, and it takes a couple days for it to dry. If we have the evidence dryers, we have the spots for them because the building was designed around the spots. Just for some reason, when it got designed with PRCA, they didn't get put in there, or JRCA, I'm sorry. But you can do it in a matter of a couple hours, and then you can tag them and bag them and put them in the proper spot they go. So it's just efficient. Efficient, yeah.
Okay, and then the car cameras.
In-car cameras, I initially put in for 11 of them. Ours are in really, really bad shape right now because we were using the old Digital Allies, and they're going the way of the woolly mammoth. They're just dinosaurs in this business right now. And we have 5 new watch guards that are out in cars, so I put in for 11 more. I was able to procure 2 of them from an alcohol grant, so now I'm looking for 9 more, and they're about $5,600 for. But the good thing about them is they're state of the art. I mean, they do everything. When you pull in the parking lot, they upload video, they upload audio automatically, and we're set up in the parking lot to do that. So the guys, when they pull in here, it uploads to a server automatically, so it doesn't have to be done manually. And I mean, they're just really good cameras, and they're coexistent with our WatchGuard system, our body cameras, and
So is that state mandated that you have to have a car camera rolling,
No.
or no? Okay. I remember there was talk about that.
Well, it was a body cam.
body
But
cameras.
I thought there had to be a car cam and a body cam.
No, I think it was just body, wasn't it? Just,
Just smart.
Well, so you can't it's difficult to prosecute some cases without the dash cam, or a body cam. You have to have one or the other. Because usually you want to video the field sobriety tests and, there's things that you want on camera.
Well, a lot of times the in-car cam will get the totality of the circumstance that the body cam just doesn't get.
Right.
Just
Well, and
because of-
especially if the officer's taking somebody
Yeah,
down,
Right,
the camera's not gonna get that.
so.
Great. Thanks, chief.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
So Diana, these are, that unfunded, those are priority things. There's a lot of other things that's not even coming up on these lists.
I know.
But this is all we have for the fund now, but as soon as we find funds, then we'll,
Well, that's
Well, so what
my
I'm-
next question.
What I'm saying is, are there some things here that are not emergencies that down here in the
well,
unfunded?
I don't think
Well-
these down here are any more emergency than up above here.
But guys, look, we've got up to $280,000 that I'm thinking
Betting is gonna go
betting that
COVID.
Scott's gonna get that done. And if there's $280,000, what I'd like to see is a prioritization of additional 280,000 from the unfunded,
Well, like
like the body cameras, like the training, that we could allocate once the COVID funds come in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, our plan was as soon as it was funded, then we could just bring it back to you with the prioritization, similar to what we're doing today.
mean,
With the recommendation
Because I think
from
everything
staff,
you
but-
mentioned, the dryer, the watch guard, the paramedic training, the portable radios, that's $180,000
Yeah,
swag.
most of what you're talking about, we can get done,
Yeah.
but I am still a little nervous about the ambulance and the COVID. That's just me.
Did we find out that there was anybody else that was doing that?
Yeah. it's in your
One
email.
other place in Millard County, and then one other city somewhere else.
No, there was,
So it's-
no, there was one more, wasn't there?
Oh, for the ambulance?
Yeah.
Well, Dave did his research.
Yeah.
Yeah, and.
There was like three, I thought.
Yeah, there was like three
Yeah.
in the nation,
Yeah.
you know, so.
But we can lead the nation.
Well, but here's, and again, here's kind of how I feel a little bit about it. I think some cities are going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
When I asked the county, have you had any requests for an ambulance, he said, in Utah County, we're the first city to ask that question. So if other cities are saying, hey, if we can get an ambulance that is justified with this COVID money, and we have 6 cities now in Utah County doing it, I feel a lot more comfortable than when we're the only city doing that and we're kind of out on.
But-
But likewise, if there's all of a sudden 6 ambulances, our lead time coming out of,
Yeah.
Well, no, but that's why we're gonna do it
We're getting
anyway.
ours ordered.
yeah,
We're-
right.
We're gonna do it anyway, because we have it
One-
funded under general.
One thing
Alright,
that it does do is that if you have certain staff that are just assigned to a certain ambulance, you're not going to cross-contaminate. So you've got these 2 guys, they always run this ambulance. These 2 always run the ambulance.
It's not necessarily the personnel, it's more that, we don't have to decontaminate a ambulance every single time we transport a COVID person. And so it would be set aside for that. And there are when we talked to the county, they were nodding their head. They were like, okay, I think you're making a case for this.
Well, I'm not going to make a political statement.
Now, keep
Okay.
that,
That
keep
was
that for
close.
now. I just,
So if we prioritize,
Well, let's wait to see.
yeah, let us bring that
Let's-
back to you,
let's-
staff.
Well, I'd like
Things
to
may
just see,
change by
I'd like to just see, of the $700,000, what are we, how are we prioritizing that?
Well, no, we sit back down with the department heads and say, okay, what's next on the list?
But can that be done with everyone in a group instead of just one-offs with
Sure.
you and Denise?
Yeah.
Because I think everyone should be part of that decision so they can know what the needs are of the other departments and it might affect the things that they bring forward. And then I feel like it's more of a team effort instead of just kind of one-offs. You don't know what someone's bringing forward, how much,
Yeah.
what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I mean, even the prioritization of, the funded list as well. I mean, there's a couple things. I mean, if we need to hold off on tennis courts, I mean, I'd love to get those resurfaced, but if we need to hold off on those for the safety of our officers with radios, cameras, paramedic training, and the safety of our citizens, I'd rather do that.
Well, that's exactly why we're having this meeting. So if you want us to take the 200,000 set aside for tennis and reallocate that, then we can do that.
can we mill and overlay?
This is a complete rebuild because we're gonna do
No,
them
you can't.
post-tension, which means that they won't crack.
Okay.
They'll be done, I mean, most tennis courts are done nowadays are post-tension, which are nice solid surface, they don't crack, they last a long time. So, but again, I mean, this is us making a recommendation, this is you saying, okay, let's not do the tennis courts, let's put this towards other things. That's why we're here having the discussion.
Right.
I mean, I'd like you to come back with, if it's a prioritization of everything, the 1.3 million, that includes the funded and unfunded, and I'd like the department heads, this was my suggestion, that they are all part of that discussion, so everyone knows where each department is at and their needs, because then I feel like it's more of a team effort and where we're going. The council makes the final decision, but it's been a team effort to get to that point. And then also, if we can call around for bids, it's hard, like when we hear the clock tower repair for 5,000, but we're not sure, and then we already have the money spent on the space needs analysis, but what if the clock tower comes back at 10,000, then we're in trouble. Like, it's just, there's a lot of unknowns. So if there's a way to even get a couple bids, and I'd like to establish a protocol moving forward with how we get bids for different items in the city, because we've kind of been burned on that a little bit in the past on some large ticket items, and then we're in trouble.
What
Well,
was
they-
that word on? I'm not following you, Sid.
I'm just saying, what's the process for, whether it's the marquee or the clock tower or the Christmas lights, what's the process for getting a bid and bringing that back to us so we can know that we have the closest number we have before we sign off on it?
Yeah, so generally speaking, the process is we have our retreat, we talk about things that the council would like to do. So Christmas lights are a good example, or the clock tower, whatever. And you say, hey, we'd like to get that fixed. And so then we go back and we figure out a cost estimate as to what that is.
And what does that process look like for
So
figuring
it's
out the
calling up
cost estimate?
Jellyfish and saying, give us a ballpark number.
And do we usually get more than one bid, and do we go off
Well,
state
no, because
bid?
we don't bid, we just get cost estimates.
And do we usually get a cost estimate from more than one vendor?
Generally, no. I mean, because we're trying to establish a ballpark number. We're not, to go through the actual bid process takes notice, takes money, takes time. And so, I mean, almost everything we do, I mean, our whole general fund budget is based on estimates. Our revenues are all estimates. Our expenditures are pretty much mostly estimates, our
Scott?
personnel costs.
So there's the state site, right, that, here's the vendors, right? We could reach out to a few of them and get a couple cost estimates, right? I mean, if they're if they're on the state
If
bid,
they're on the state bid, then we don't have to bid it, and they can give us a number and we can go with
well,
them.
couldn't we just reach out to them and say, give us a cost, I don't know,
Well,
cost
that's
estimate?
That's
what
where
we
we get
do.
the most of the estimates.
Yeah.
That's what we
Where the
do.
vehicle-
I mean,
That's where the
instead of,
vehicle estimates
instead of
come
just
from.
saying one, we say, hey, there's 3 people on here, why don't we reach out to 2 of them?
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Because typically the
we-
bid, you're gonna, right, we know how the game's played, there's gonna be the low bidder and then the very high bidder, right? What happens if we just happen to get the high
well,
cost
generally-
estimate?
Generally,
right?
we get a cost estimate and then we take the high end.
Well, I know, I just,
I mean, we
I don't
don't,
think it'd be too hard to just say, here's 2, here's our range, here you go. I don't
The
know.
state website is gonna be more vehicles where it's
Yeah.
very precise, or like a copier or a printer. On construction projects, they're not gonna qualify that kind
No.
of stuff.
well, because they're going to want a bunch of information. They're going to want to see the engineered plans. They're gonna-
RFP type thing.
And the
yeah.
prices will change week to week.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's how we do all of our water projects, sewer projects. It's an engineer's estimate. They're just looking at it saying, according, in our professional opinion, this is going to be a $500,000 project. There's times we bid those and they're 400,000, and there's times we bid them and they're 600,000.
I'm just saying, like, let's take the library, the marquee, right? It shouldn't be too hard for us to reach out to a couple sign companies and say, typically, right, cost estimate. I'm just throwing this out,
Yeah, yeah.
so. And then we come back with the 2 cost estimates. Marty's raising his hand back there, so he's,
Marty's got a
comment?
question back there.
Well, the reality of it is you've got to make sure if you're getting 2 bids, you have to give them enough detail that they're bidding exactly what you want. So on the marquee, you're going to have to give both contractors, you're going to have to do enough information, say, I want it to be brick of this style, I want it to be this high, I want it to be this material. So if you get to that level of detail, then yes, you can get more bids. If you're just looking for an approximate estimate of this, then it's really hard to get really refined numbers when you're just looking for, again, a conceptual estimate so that you can have some budgeting before you get into the real detail of the design.
I totally understand. It's just sometimes it puts us in a weird spot sometimes when we talk about this, right? Because we're throwing out a 60K figure and I don't know, and maybe it comes back at 70, right? Because now we got more specific about it, but I don't know.
Well, I think the bottom line for me is we're being asked to sign up on a budget, and we don't always have accurate estimates. And I'm wondering if there's a process in place so we can get more accurate estimates. So when we sign off on the budget, because it's our names on the budget, how we can get there so we're not over, under, I mean, I know we're not going to get right on like Marty's saying, but I'm just wondering if there's a process that we can get a little bit closer to, other than like a guesstimate. Like, can we get a couple bids? Can we call a couple Christmas light companies and get a couple bids? Can we call someone about the clock tower? Like, is there a way to not go through the whole entire bid process, but get us a little bit closer so we feel more comfortable signing off
Yeah.
on the budget?
Yeah, on the Christmas lights and things like that, that's not a problem. On the park, an engineer's going to give us a cost estimate. I mean, for us to get that engineered and to get a bid will probably cost $50,000. And the whole purpose of what we're trying to do is we're trying to give you guys an idea of what something costs so you can say, here's how much money we're willing to allocate to that. If you need more money, then you got to come back and ask us for more. If you don't need more money, then you can proceed on the project. Because we've done this. We've done this a few times where the bids come in higher than what our cost estimate was, and we've had to come back and ask for a budget amendment. And the council said, yes, we want to, because we don't have to do the project. Once we have a bid, and if it's $50,000 off, we can walk away. But we have to understand, we have a sunk cost at that point. And generally speaking, it's something that we need to have done anyway. And so we come back and say, okay, council, we need another $50,000 to do this project. And that's because we'll have another project that's going to come in $50,000 less generally. I mean, and we have, each enterprise fund has reserve accounts. We have a general fund reserve account to account for these things. But man, in the last 10 years, I think there are just very few times where we've had to come back and say, hey, we were way off on this and there's additional money.
But it happened recently with the care tax funds.
Regarding,
Pickleball, the pool toy. I mean, there's just been some times, like even the marquee, where
Oh, yeah.
we're now triple over cost.
well,
We've
no,
approved
well,
it.
I mean, keep in mind, the scope changed. I mean, with the library marquee, the scope changed. The initial scope was just a sign with a pole. And then the
Oh, an
council said,
existing
we want a monument sign. Well, that's a whole different
Yeah.
world, and that's more expensive. So we weren't off on our estimate. The scope of the project changed. And the same happened with the pickleball courts.
But have we got an official bid on the marquee?
No, we don't have an
No.
official bid on any of this.
So Scott, how
We
hard,
don't have an official bid on the ambulance. We don't, like I said, we don't have official
how
bid.
hard is it for you to go back, take this funded list and get it prioritized, work with the directors and come back to us, say, really, here's the 1 through 10? Maybe you've already done it, right? Maybe that's what we're really looking at. Maybe-
That's what you're looking at.
So you're saying the number one priority here is funded is the clock tower?
Oh, no, this is just alphabetical.
Okay, well, then it's alphabetical then. So what I'm saying is, how easy is it for you to put numbers on this?
Oh, do you want the funded and unfunded all kind of numerical on
Per
prioritization?
se, yeah. Maybe it'd be, make it a little easier for us.
But I want.
That's what I'm
I
hearing.
want all
Well,
of you
I
guys to
think what he's
decide that.
asking, he's, okay, the
I'm just trying to
administration
make this
brought us
quick and
these and
simple,
says,
yeah.
here's the ones, and here's the unfunded. But he's asking the council, are you all right with this, or do you want to take some of these out? You want to,
Yeah,
hey,
I'm
we can
actually,
take the
I'm actually to the
courts
point
out,
where some of
okay?
these may
Take
come
the
out.
courts out and do something else. That's what he's been asking you to say,
Okay, I'm ready. Let's go for it then. Let's go for
except
it
we're
then.
out of time.
Well,
Well,
let's do this in
we
our
can-
council
we can
meeting.
do it at
Let's-
the
let's-
end of the meeting then.
Let's continue the discussion.
Bring it
but
on.
I don't know if something happened with the process, but this is how we've done it every year. I mean, every year, we have made recommendation on the budget to the council.
I just think we see some different things in here, like maybe in our mind are critical, maybe than more than, sorry, Tyler, right? Than the front desk, right? Maybe we take a harder look at the police and the fire department and say, hey,
For that the front desk could be funded.
This is COVID.
that's what I'm saying, right? Because there are
So I
all
wonder
these
if
different
we just
scenarios, and
aren't
that's why
gonna have enough.
I first asked you about the county, and we have to get all these stupid things approved, and there's all these different mitigating things going on, right? Floating up above us, and we're expected just to
Yeah,
grab on and go.
I think for me, Eric, I think you're spot on. I think for me, it really isn't 165 on the top.
Yeah.
Because I think we can probably get at least the front desk remodel, right? So that frees up 30,000. Okay, well, now what should we do, right? We've got portable radios, we've got watch car cameras. I'd really like to be able to prioritize those because those are important. So I think that's why you're asking for a prioritization, 1 through 10, and then
Yeah.
unfunded 1 through 10.
Yeah,
just
the
got all
only difference
these-
is generally, we haven't done a number on each individual item. We've just said, here's what we recommend.
It's just this year you got COVID sitting
not
floating
funded.
above us, right?
I know,
Confusing
COVID has been
things, right? Saying
Well, no, and
maybe,
COVID's
maybe.
changed it this year, and that's
Yeah.
probably part of the problem is, this is what we have today.
Yeah.
And that could change in 2 weeks, but
Okay.
we don't know that for sure. And so this is what we're recommending today. And if this money frees up, then we just come back to you in 2 weeks and say, okay, we're good to go. This is now off the list. This money's now available. And to sit down with all the department heads, I mean, that's not a problem. I mean, to say, let's get everybody in the room and have that discussion.
Okay.
But-
Have a priority list.
Yeah, so if the council's saying we want it 1 through 25, we'll do it 1 through 25. Generally, we haven't done that. We've just done funded
But
and
it's just,
unfunded.
it's hard for me to know where to start because you guys are the ones doing the day-to-day operations. you guys are the ones working together every day as a team. Like, I would rather have you prioritize it and then we take a look, and our job is to pass and maybe rearrange a little bit, but I'm not the day-to-day decision maker for the departments and working so closely with employees and equipment
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what the needs are. And I would prefer that you guys work together as a team and sit down and be in sync with what all the needs are of the departments. And, I mean, that's what I would prefer, and then
Well, I feel like that's what we're doing now. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, I mean, that's the staff sitting down and saying, here's the priority, in our opinion.
but numbered, I think is what we're saying.
Sure, and
Yeah.
so the number is different. We haven't
Okay.
done that in the past, and we can do that.
Well, if Mayor would quit talking, we could probably move on.
I think we need to adjourn so we can have the quick bite to eat before we have our meeting. And then we can pick this conversation back up in council meeting, and
Yeah.
if there's decisions you want to
where
make
we're gonna
today,
go.
let's do it. Because we'd like to get moving on whatever projects we want to fund, so we can get going on them.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adjourn the work session.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?